Ergonomics is the study of the natural laws of work, and our work is lower back pain. We've designed our space specifically so that we may teach our clientele all of the postures, motions, and loads necessary to relieve themselves of the back pain, but also in such a way that they can learn how to navigate in their natural environment at home and at work in order to alleviate themselves and to build greater resilience and perfect form. Our private fitness facility has been designed primarily and specifically with back pain in mind. As you can see, I'm going to let my client in and I can show you why we've built and designed this space the way we have. Hello, nice to see you. Come on in, please, straight and to the left. As you can see, freeze. As you can see, as the person walks down the stairs, I'm watching for their movement patterns. So I'm watching how they've opened the door. I'm watching whether perhaps this knee is caving in and maybe unstable. I'm watching the pattern of the pelvis, the legs, the limbs, the joints from the ankle all the way up. I'm watching the back. And let's go straight and make it to the left. Let's walk straight down to the change room. As I send my client down to get changed, you can see I'm able to watch him walk from the back and turn into the change room. This is specifically designed so that he doesn't know that I'm observing and assessing his walking form. Here I have a station with water and coffee, and so when the client comes back, I'm also able to see him from the front. As my client returns, I'm able to observe the way he walks from the front. I watch the knees, the hips, the back, and as you can see, there's no motion in the chest. There you go, sir. Please come and join me in the reception. As you can see, we have a standing desk with the screen right at eye height. So as we discuss being upright and vertical and with a horizontal gaze, we're able to book our session here and discuss what's in the calendar. Now, while I let him marinate on this idea of a full calendar, I move over to the back and I nonchalantly take a look at his posture while he's not aware that I'm doing so. This is more indicative of reality, as many people will try to posture themselves correctly, or at least how they imagine to be correct while they're in front of us. But now he's thinking about his schedule and he's bending his back, and he's not realizing that I'm watching all of the faulty patterns as we go. Here you can see that our coffee counter is lower than a standardized one, and that's with one thing in mind. I would like to see my client reach for the coffee which I present him with, and as he does so, he's going to have to reach lower than normal. Please go ahead, enjoy. And you can see as he reaches, I'm able to see what happens in the back. You may notice that the seat in our reception lounge is lower than the standard chair, and here's why. We're trying to make it just slightly lower so that we exacerbate the position that the person falls into when they sit. Please have a seat, sir. And you'll see that he leans, and you'll see that he pulls under and bends and rotates. And so just by sitting together without asking him, without making him aware that I am testing him, I'm actually watching for his motor patterns. You'll also notice that this seating area goes quite far back, which exacerbates a pulled under pelvis and a lean back position, at which point we can discuss the pain. And at this point, I will ask the client how they're feeling on a scale of 1 to 10. We'll also discuss alternative ways of sitting. So please, would you mind spreading your legs for me? Sitting up tall, breathing into the chest and lifting your gaze horizontally. I will run my hand down the back. We'll discuss whether this is better, worse, or same. And as you can see, I have yoga blocks here, which I will then use in order to create some extra space between him and the backboard. And we'll start to discuss sitting back and leaning into a support for his lower back. I'll ask the gentleman to stand up again, and I'll watch the pattern. As he stands, he leaned forward, bent, and now he's pulling up like a marionette towards the ceiling. And from there, we'll go right into coaching. So I'll ask you to stand upright, look horizontal, and descend right back into your hips. Imagine that your spine is staying long and tall while you descend back and sit almost on your hamstrings. Looking up, looking up, looking up, nice and slow. And then I will again ask the person whether that was better, worse, or same. If the person has longer femurs and we find that their knees are above the hips, if we find this contributes to some of the pulling under or falling forward, what I'm simply going to do is I'm going to then increase the sitting height. Would you please stand up appropriately for me, sir? There you go. And we're going to sit back, and I've just elevated him 10 centimeters where he will find that he's a lot more comfortable. You can imagine how many times per day a trainer has to pick up plates and put them away back to where they belong. Here you see our ergonomically friendly setup, which is aimed to save our backs as we work all day long. We have the plates stacked on the wall, and as you can see, the lightest plates are right at the top. The closer I come to the wall, the safer it is for me to transfer the weight right towards my body. The interesting thing about physics is a weight that is part of my body is not distinguished as a separate entity by the laws of physics. As soon as I bring the weight away from my body, now I have to deal with the lever arm, and my core better be strong enough to maintain rigidity and stability and stiffness. So, light weights on the top. As you can see, the further I am, the harder it is, the longer the lever arm, the more risk, the higher I go. So, ideally, I step forward, I keep my elbows tight to my body, the weight as close to the center as possible, and I lift up overhead without leaning back and loading my spine. Middle weights, right in the middle, very easy to transfer. I pull to the center of my mass, which is just below my belly button, and I swivel 90 degrees to the right. You'll notice I'm swiveling on my toes, left and right, 90 degrees, without rotating my spine by itself. This reduces greatly any sort of injury potential. You can see I pull the plates towards myself, and I always rest them against my body. I turn, I walk towards the wall, and I simply insert without having to reach and load the spine itself. You'll also notice that our heaviest weights are on the bottom. There's two reasons for that. Number one, I can descend into my hip hinge. I can simply rest my elbows onto the knees in order to pull them off. But also, beyond simply just alleviating the risk associated with bending my spine and bending deep, what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to pull them off and let them land on the floor. This is rubber, these are bumper plates, so there's no problem hitting the floor, which is also covered in rubber. Also, if I need to transfer somewhere, I can simply roll the plate across and back. If I need to pick it up, I simply stand over top so that my center of mass is directly above the plate itself. I grip, I pick up through my hips without bending my spine, and I flip the plate towards my center, where again, I can simply press it onto the bar. If you're a movement expert, that may not be a problem for you because you don't load your spine while you use your shoulders and hips in order to pick weights up and put weights down. When it comes to deadlifts, they are not without their contention. You will often meet people who say, don't do deadlifts, they're terrible for your back. And you'll meet other people who have claimed that they've made their back much more robust and strong by the use of deadlifts. It may be simply that some people have a better body type that is more suited towards lifting from the floor. Other people may not be gifted with the same joint shapes or lever lengths. Let me show you what goes wrong with deadlifts most of the time. Whenever we hear a story, and trust me, this story has been repeated over and over and over when we consult people for back pain, and often the culminating moment is a pop in the back just when they're lifting a weight off of the floor. Whether they're doing it for the first time, whether they're trying to break a personal record, or whether they've been doing it for a while and their back finally gave out. The culprit is flexion and compression. You'll see that these people, after they grab the bar, if the weight is too great for them to overcome with proper form, or perhaps they're just not aware of proper form, you'll see that they pull the weight into their spine, which is bending. A lot of the time they're able to even complete the bend, but at some point, the pressure, the compressive force, and the bend is too great and simply impedes on natural function of the disc, hurting it. So ideally, we want to descend with a hip hinge. We want to be able to grab and lift the chest, keep the back absolutely straight, bend the bar in order to activate the lats. Make sure you activate the hips, breathe in through your nose to inflate the diaphragm, and simply push against the floor to stand up without moving or creating motion in the spine itself. Upon descent, breathing in again, filling your diaphragm, and keeping the bar as close to the body as possible. Now, I have long arms, and I also have quite shallow hip sockets, so that's relatively easy for me. Imagine if my arms were this short. What happens then? It is unclear to me who decided that the Olympic plate should be this diameter exactly. As you can see, for my arm, when I descend, I need not bend my back. But now imagine if my arm was shorter and I go down to the floor, what must happen in order for me to reach it is the spinal flexion. At this point, lifting off of the floor is where all of the danger and risk reside. Luckily, we have a solution, and that is a simple support and lift, which we've created at home. So as you can see, I'm able to lift the plate just a little bit, and that extra little inch that I've lifted it upwards almost entirely eliminates any risk associated on the bottom. As you can see here, I need not go as deep in order to lift now. Some may argue that there's a little bit of effect on the bottom. However, if I can get rid of all of the risk, or most of the risk, of course, making sure the person stays in good position and keep most of the benefit, then I think we've made a good adjustment. So again, I'm going to sit back into my hips, I'm going to grab the bar, lift my chest, make sure that everything stays straight, and I make sure I sit back, I breathe in, I exhale, I execute the lift, and again, as I descend back, I use my hips, I keep my back and my glutes on, and I return the bar to its place. As you can see, a simple lift can tremendously help to alleviate any risk associated with spinal flexion and compression on the bottom of the lift. Some people struggle to lift from the floor even after they've lifted the plates on the blocks. What we can do is we can actually come up on spotter arms and have them lift pretty much from knee height, which in any case, in real life, is where they're going to be most likely lifting most objects from. Right here, you see I've come right to the bar with my knees, and I again descend into my hips and I sit back in order to be able to reach it. And I just simply make sure that I do not pull my pelvis under, that I don't round my chest and shoulders, and I don't collapse my head. In other words, I want to stay straight and tall, descend into my hips, grip the bar, bend, and basically I'm able to allow myself to experience a little bit of strength, grip, and stability while eliminating almost entirely the more risky zone of going all the way to the floor. It is often not just the exercise which helps or hurts, but the way that the exercise is executed which makes it helpful or hurtful. Here's a very common case scenario when people have that culminating moment, that moment where they either hear audibly a pop or they feel something went wrong in their back, maybe a sharp pain, sudden. It might be immobilizing. The person might be left on all fours not knowing what to do. Usually, it's multiple planes of motion, meaning the person will flex their spine and therefore making it a little bit less resilient. They might rotate the spine, making it less resilient and then they might push or pull, either picking up the weight and having an episode, or perhaps just carelessly putting the weight back. In any case, these two scenarios, what they have in common is a weight at the end of a lever arm being supported by a spine which is not in an appropriate and stable position. How do we deal with this? Well, one of the things that we try to do in order to pick up a weight without putting too much burden on our back is to simply place one knee underneath it, especially when the weights are low, and we're simply going to keep our spine straight, move in the hips, and pull the weight onto the leg, like so. As you can see, I can swivel my body in any direction I want, but the weight is actually touching my leg. If I were to bend my hips, the weight is still on my leg. I'm not loading my back per se. I can also keep the weight touching the outside of my leg, opening my shoulder, and I can simply walk across with it. We've discussed the suitcase carry, which is actually an excellent way to train the core and its stiffness and stability. Now, I can do so with the other side. I can pick up the other weight. If I need to transfer them upwards, rather than simply bending and hoping that my spine stays in place, I can actually use my knee and my hip to swing it up. Once I've transferred it to the shoulder, again, the same rules apply. A weight, which is touching my body and close to the center, is considered as one object with my body according to the laws of physics. So I'm going to allow the weight to come back, and I'm going to show you how to set up on a bench without exacerbating any pain in my back. Here you'll see I have my dumbbells ready. They're touching my body, and I'm going to transfer them to my legs, my thighs. You'll notice that with the dumbbells close to my knees and a straight back, I'm able to simply do a hack squat right onto the bench, and I haven't loaded my spine in the same way as I would have if the dumbbells were in front of my body. So once again, I stand up, the weights are on my thighs, I can transfer them to my sides, walk back to the rack, or as I set up to sit, I simply swing them to the front of my thighs and I sit back into my hips. You'll notice that my spine was actually vertical, so actually it was an even better state and position to be loaded with my weights on the front of the legs. Now from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on my back in order to complete a chest press. What I don't want is I don't want to roll my spine back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply pop back with my whole body and lay on my spine like so and press the weights up. After I've completed my set, whether I'm in a dead bug or whether I'm using my feet on the floor for extra support, I'm simply going to bring my knees up to the dumbbells, place them on the knees, and I'm going to use the momentum to rock forward with a straight spine. Once more, I'm gonna rock back, lay back, set up, complete my movement, after which I'm going to bring my knees up into a dead bug and practice stabilizing, breathing in, and coming back up and standing. And at no point did I need to bend my spine. The eyes are critical for us to use our environment wisely and also to spot our form. The lights here are above us, lighting up the ceiling, so we have good visibility, but nothing is right in our eyes. And as you can see, we have built a cable column right into the doorway so that we are minimalist in terms of space. Everything is off to the periphery. And the actual cables themselves are built into the floor and put under the pillars so that we do not kick the stands and everything is out of the way and convenient for exercise. We also have mounted mirrors on top of these sliding doors. So once I close this, I'm able to spot myself from a 30 to 45 degree angle when I exercise on this cable column. Here, if I face the cable, you'll see that I'm able to see myself simultaneously in the left and the right mirror, which allows me a peripheral correction when I execute any given exercise here. Beyond this, you can see that the cable column itself adjusts in height. Dependent on the type of exercise I will be executing, where I can pull horizontally, I can pull in many different directions from the top down and from the bottom up, and simply adjust by the click of the adapter. Here you see a curved treadmill, which is designed to teach people appropriate walking and running form, more specifically keeping the weight on the forefoot and the middle front of the foot while they strike against it. Because there is no motor here, what you find is that simply walking gets it started. The more vertical that I am, the slower it will go. The more I lean forward, the more force I'll put into the treadmill, and the faster it'll go. For me to slow down, I have to simply slow my cadence. I lower my cadence and I get more upright, so I go back to a safe walking form. And as I do so, I could feel myself landing on the middle of the outside of the foot and pushing off of the big toe. Here we coach people to look upwards, to elongate their spine, to point their fingers, to set their gaze horizontal, and to basically realize that walking and running is simply verticalization and alternating standing on one foot while falling forward in order to create more force and speed, as well as slow, controlled rhythm, as well as alternating their cadence. Here we have an example of how we use the space on the mirrors set at 90 degrees to us in order to spot ourselves appropriately while exercising. We simply change the orientation of our body and work with the appropriate mirror. I will simply kneel down on one leg, I will spot myself in the mirror for form, and I'm going to pull the cable upwards and across. Once I've done my set, I'm simply going to alternate my knees, and I'm going to face the opposite mirror where again, I will see my form directly ahead of me. Here we have the famous Slovak box, which was designed and created by hand by our great colleague, Tino Janikov, PhD. Irrespective of which exercise we employ, let's say that we are doing a little heel tap on the floor, we are able to then progress by lifting the box and bringing the person 10 centimeters higher each time. So we're able to progress or regress according to our client's needs, their capabilities, their competencies, and the form and the feedback that we get from their body. Again, we're able to take this another step higher. And for this exercise, most likely, this will be too much, but that is the whole point, to show you. So this may be too much before I break form in my back, and therefore I need to regress my way back down. In principle, this just shows you how we need to be variable in our setup in order to execute appropriately with good form. We've shown you some examples of how we have adapted our exercise equipment specifically to the task which we are teaching our clientele, but also how we've designed our reception, our hallway, and the general space for people to be able to navigate an environment, how to sit, how to stand correctly, how to reach for objects, therefore teaching them not only how to exercise, but also how to move about space and learn how to use their environment correctly. We hope this was helpful.